Well, we're here today with Jim. Jim has very kindly agreed to speak about his experience with regard to his fear of heights, acrophobia, and how he used hypnotherapy to overcome his basic fears. And so, first of all, Jim, welcome. It's really nice to speak with you. Can you give us some sense, please, of what exactly your problem was prior to your hypnotherapy treatment, and why it had become such an issue for you?
I went through a lot of my life being able to cope very well with heights. My life experience was such that I didn't have any problem at all. But more recently, in the last 10 years, I'm just the wrong side of 60, so literally in the last 10 years, everything's changed. Suddenly, I've become very frightened of heights. I've developed a severe fear of heights and anxiety, which was beginning to interfere with my life. It stopped me from carrying out simple, practical repairs to my house. When I was away on holiday, my partner would be able to explore the upper parts of buildings, castles, walls and so on, and I would have to sit on a bench and watch her enjoying them. It had got so bad, in fact, that I struggled to even walk across footbridges, across rivers and roads and so on. And another thing that happened, which I think was probably the thing to make me realise I did need help. I was driving my car, we were on holiday, we were down in Devon, we were on a narrow coast road, and my fear of the drop over the cliff on the right hand side was sufficient to make me almost crash the car on the near side.
So the question I have is what was the fear like? If you were trying to explain what that was like as a physiological feeling, what was it like?
It was a deep. It wasn't a shallow thing. It was very intense. I had the feeling that my body would let me down and that I would tumble over the edge and fall, and there would be nothing I could do to stop myself. It was as if I could not control the situation.
Yeah,
and
that seems to be a problem for a lot of people who suffer from these kinds of panic attacks, anxieties and phobias. What exactly were you saying in your head all the time to try and control this? What exactly were you using?
Well, I knew it was silly.
Right.
I mean, silly would be, you think, well, why should I be frightened? I'm standing 5 feet away from the edge of a hill, really, not even a vertical cliff, and I'm standing on a castle wall, and there's a wall that comes up to my waist. Unless I actually physically threw myself off, there's no way would I be able to fall off. But my fear was that I was insecure and that I might fall, and in fact, it wasn't going to happen.
And had you heard of hypnotherapy before?
Yes, yeah. I'd actually seen hypnotherapy carried out in a laboratory when I was a student. It was part of my study at university. I do know it has a lot of power, and to suggest things into the unconscious mind has a great deal of power behind it. And I felt in the end that it was probably my only hope to be able to cope with these situations in my life.
So prior to contacting Cumbria Hypnosis, was there a certain amount of trepidation about, what was out there and whether or not you could actually find the solution through hypnosis, or were you always?
Not really. I was too embarrassed to go to mention it at the doctor. It was not, and quite honestly, they haven't got any funding for that sort of thing anyway. So I knew I was going to have to find someone to help me myself. I did already realise that there's a huge gulf between the sort of hypnotism you see in a stage show and the sort of hypnotism that a therapist can provide to support these type of things.
So you arrived at your first session with an open mind?
No, actually, I arrived with a very positive mind in that I was pretty confident that it was going to help. It was. So
do you think that's an important element in terms of the efficacy of this kind of treatment? There has to be that openness to want to change.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you've really got to want to do it. It's got to have enough meaning to you to. But I think for someone to find you and actually come to you and say, "This is my problem. I want it to be fixed." It's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous, I guess. But
it takes confidence to do that.
Yes, once you've overcome that initial step, then it's easy, I think.
So really, after your first session, what was your experience?
It was fabulous. I felt so upbeat, confident. And I had this overriding importance in testing what had happened. And I went off. And
that's seen in the video that we can see here on the website.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I went off to a bridge that on previous occasions I'd actually been very worried about crossing. Certainly wouldn't have stood around too long in the middle of the bridge. And it was not far from my house, and I knew it would be a good test. And we went with my partner, and she videoed my experience, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Excellent.
And it gave me the confidence to move on even further. That was just a very first step.
And so what was your experience over the weeks? What did you find from that very first week in terms of your confidence growing? What did you find was happening thereafter?
I think it enabled me to become a part of the therapy even further. It gave me the confidence to allow it
to work.
Yeah. And there were no barriers. Once I realised I already thought it was going to be a powerful tool, but once I'd experienced its power, it made it even easier to allow it to come to fruition. And at this point in time, I want to walk over Sydney Harbour Bridge.
That's going to be your goal. I see that, and we've seen you going up and down ladders as well. I mean, can you tell the people who are listening, was that something that was a big goal for you, going up and down a ladder in recent times?
It kind of, but again, it almost seems so pathetic looking back on it, because what used to happen, I would perhaps want to get up to a first floor window to do some painting or something. And I would climb up the ladder, but because I had to hold onto the ladder so tightly, I couldn't actually do anything. I couldn't hold a paintbrush. I couldn't hold a piece of sandpaper. If I could have done the job with my teeth, then I would have done. But now, in fact, I think after the second session, I was able to go up a ladder, go up to the eaves of the house and stand on the ladder and actually let go and wave my arms around.
Yeah, amazing. And can you tell people who are listening, was it a difficult process?
No.
What was it like?
Not for me.
No.
What
were you, without going into the specifics of the techniques, etc., what did you enjoy most about your experience?
Surprise, I think. It was almost, after each session, this feeling that I'm closer to having solved a problem. There's somehow this thing inside me now that says, you can do all this, it's not going to be a problem. And I'm almost surprised at myself, because that's now how I feel, whereas before it was a worry.
So it's almost a part of you now, rather than
for sure.
Rather than it being some kind of abstract, something you're aspiring to do. You just feel it's a natural part of you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really great. Really great.
Obviously, I want to test the thing.
Of course.
And I'll go on.
Well, if you'd agree, Jim, we'd love to sort of see you back here at some point, giving us an update. But
yeah, for sure.
But for now, I'd just like to wish you all the very best, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, and I'm really very grateful to you for helping me.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure working with you, Jim. Thank you.